So I've come over today, and as you can see, everyone's plots now are starting to die down, and so are mine, but there's just still plenty more to do. I've got a new light to put in the shed. I want to try and get the garlic in today because it's that time of year. Popping the garlic in, giving it some time to grow some roots, a tiny shoot before the frost comes and splits that clove. So there's lots to do today. I also want to put a spotlight on the polytunnel. I've got a list as long as my arm, so let's try and get as much as we can done today. So I've got a few extra bags of bark here, and it's rain, but it's protected in these, so they're handy now for putting in between the new beds that I'm going to put up in the next week or two. So if you have got that ability of getting hold of some free bark, I'd bag some up as well, because it is always handy, especially if it rots down really well and you could put it in the bottom of your beds. I wouldn't put fresh bark in the bottom of your beds because it will draw the nitrogen out of the soil and compost that you put on top to try and break down that bark. So use the well-rotted stuff, but if you can get hold of some, it's perfect for in between the paths when it gets a bit muddy. But I'm lucky now that most of my paths are done. This bed is really looking like it's feeling sorry for itself now. We've still got some of the black calla lilies in here, but most of it now, the honker blacks, they've seen their best days. So I'm definitely going to take them out of here because it's a raised bed. So some flowers, some dahlias and perennials will be okay in the ground as long as you give them a good mulch over. I'm going to do some like that and some not. In raised beds and things like that, especially the metal ones, I would take them out because they're more susceptible of getting, you know, frosted up there. So I'm definitely going to take the ones out of here, pop them up. Have you finished? I'm going to pop them up and put them in the polytunnel and hopefully overwinter them. So there is loads to do at this time of year. It baffles me when people say, oh, just leave it until the spring. This time of year, I find it's full steam ahead, at least for the next month anyway. It's so strange how many dahlias are still battling through those cold nights as well. You know, there's so many just dotted around the plot, and I come around the other day and I thought, do I pick them or do I just leave them? And it's leaving a nice bit of colour on the plot, but you can tell where the ones are surviving because they're sheltered under the trees by the polytunnel. So they're not getting battered by the cold winds yet. So I'm guessing that's why they're surviving a little bit longer. I'll also need to overwinter this soon as well. I'll bend all the leaves down, rub it in, but rub it? Don't rub your banana tree. Right, you'll need to bend down the leaves, wrap it in bubble wrap, then put some fleece over and then cover it over. I tend to use like a black bag and put it over the top because you don't want water going down that middle stem, because what happens is water gets down there, it fills up, and then when the frost comes, it splits and kills the banana plant. But if you cover it and make sure that it's like waterproof, it tends to be okay for next year. And then in spring, you'll take all the coverings off. It would look quite rotted, sort of like wet and damp, but it soon comes back to life again, and then this will get bigger and bigger and bigger. As you can see, the paths are looking beautiful, and then Mr. Mole. So the raised beds have turned up and they're exactly the same as the ones at the back, the sage ones here. I've got another 4, so I think I'm going to move those ones further down because it gets quite shady at the back there. And I think the best thing to do is to bring them down here where you get more sun and put the more shaded living plants at the back. So that's the plan in the next couple of weeks as well. I'm also going to remove the raspberries from here. They're in a weird place at the front of the plot. There's something that, you know, you crop once or twice a year, so they don't need to be at the focal end of your plot, and there's a lot of sunlight that comes here. So I want to benefit from that. So I think I'm going to put a nice raised bed all the way down here as well. Move the compost heaps further down. Now I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these two right here. Now the reason is I think that everything that I put in here, the extra goodness that leaches out into the soil will hopefully feed the asparagus in here as well. So I'm going to move these across, and then from here onwards, there's a lot of sunlight goes there, and I think I'm going to put a nice raised bed there. We'll see anyway. That's my plan for now. I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to it for now anyway. The archway is looking solid. I'm not too worried about it now. We've still got some achochas growing, which is crazy. Let me show you. So they're still growing on this vine, and I'm hoping they'll get a little bit bigger because I want to save some seeds. Not for myself, they weren't for me, but I've had quite a few viewers comment and say that they'd like some of the seeds from there. So once they're done, I'll try and send them out within the next couple of months, and yeah, you can grow them yourself. But for me, I'm not a big cucumber fan, and I'm not a achocha fan at all. But they were nice to grow, but they're just not for me. The onions are now all shooting up. Even the unreliable reds, they're starting to come now. The pak choi I need to pot up today. Also, the purple sprouting broccoli that I put in, that's coming up as well. No sign of these, but they were a hit and miss anyway. I didn't think I was going to get anything from them, but look. The snowball collie and the Chinese kale, they're looking fantastic.
I saw you from across the room. When our eyes met, I never knew I could feel this way, and it's kind of strange. Don't even know your name. I don't know you, but I want to get to know you. Just wanna get to know you. I don't.
So after a little bit of rewiring, I've managed to add an extra spotlight on here, which cost about £5. And I added the remote control sensor, which is about £4. And now when I leave the plot in the dark, I won't have to worry about walking through here, clambering over anything. All I need to do is press this button and the lights all come on the plot. And then when I get to the gate, once I've locked all up, I just press the button and all the plot lights go off. It's a genius idea. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Do I love gadgets? Yes. So another success for the plot. Now, some might say that's overkill and is it really needed? None of it is ever needed, but if I can make it a little bit easier for me and for a couple of pounds, and it's a bit of fun as well, so I'm happy now that I've done it. Another job ticked off. So now all that's done, I actually just trialed how far down the plot the remote control works, and actually goes all the way down to Lisa's. So halfway down the site, it can still turn the lights on and off. But I've actually managed to buy a light, and I mean, it's a bit big. I think it's about 4 foot, 3 foot or something for the shed, because the one that's in there hasn't got as much light impact as I wanted. And I figured the light that I've already put in there, I can put in the community shed as well. So I thought I'll just get this one and then I can swap them over. But let's have a look how this goes on. It might be too bright. So I've just potted up some Japanese chard. That'll be planted out in the polytunnel, maybe some on the raised beds once I put them up next week. And also I've got some sensu onions that I'm actually growing from seed this year, overwintering. But I'm going to plant some out in the polytunnel, some on the raised bed as well, next to the onion sets. And we'll see how they get on, how they compare. So they're worth a try as well. One thing I need to do this week as well is that some of the dahlias now, and if you see, I did label them before the season started. This one was the fireworks dahlia, and they're all in here. So I'm contemplating leaving these ones in, giving it a good mulch. So Will over at the Flying Gardener, so if you haven't, I'll put his channel here now, go over, give him some support. He's trying to get to 1K. He's giving me some advice. So he's the flower guy. You know, I'm the vegetable guy, he's the flower guy, and that's why we're kind of friends. So we bounce off each other and we give each other advice all the time. So he's advised me that some of them, you know, I could probably leave in the ground and just give them a good mulch over. I'm a little bit worried about those ones on the side of the polytunnel because the water is going to actually run off the polytunnel all winter and that could rot them. So I think those ones will definitely need to be taken out, but there are some around the trees. I think I'm just going to put a bit of bark on the top, mulch them over with some straw, and I think they'll be okay for spring. So fingers crossed them ones will be all right. I don't want to lose my dahlias. So yeah, if you haven't already, go look at Will's channel, give him a subscribe, tell him I popped you over. That would be fantastic. So at the moment I've decided that I might keep these raised beds here. This one I might make short, so I've got 3 wooden raised beds, and then the rest of the metal ones I might put them in an arc towards this one here, so that it gives a bit of feature, and all the metal raised beds will be down here next to the polytunnel, which I can put my salads in, and all the start, you know, the spring crops at the start. But I think perhaps I might leave 3 wooden raised beds at the top, just to give it a bit of character as well, because I don't want it to all be the same. So at the moment I think that's what I'm going to do, is keep those 3 raised beds up there, and they'll be perfect then because they're quite rectangular, they're good for the hoops, and also then I can put things in there like my leeks and my overflow vegetables as well. So I think what I'm going to do now is, I've got some deep pots here, and I think what I'll do is I'll try my best at taking out some of these pups. Now if I take away some of the soil, now baby banana plants are called pups, so if I say there's pups in here, it doesn't mean I'm digging out a dog. So I'm hoping that if I just gently tease this baby banana plant out, trying not to make too much disturbance, but some is unavoidable, I'm hoping, lovely, we can put this in here, and I'm hoping they'll overwinter. So fingers crossed we'll get 2 pups. Now what you want is some root form so they can take in nutrients. I'll pop him in here, looks like a bulb. I'll pop him in here, and it's got 2 choices. It can sink or swim. I don't want to need roots in. There we go. Now I'll give it a good water, leave it in the polytunnel, and then hopefully we'll have 2 baby banana plants for next year. So it's actually the next day and I've come over. The sun is bright in the sky, so I'm now going to plant up the garlic, finally. Yesterday I also potted up the sensu onions, the pak choi mix and the pak choi green, and also around here the Japanese chard, as I showed before. So there's always something to be growing. So first things first, before I head down to the plot, is I've got a pepper here that I want to dig up, and hopefully that overwinter that as well. I've got a nice bag of manure that I want to put onto this bed, plant up some of the garlic in here as well before I head down there. So at least I know I got some in the polytunnel, and it's starting off, because I don't want to leave it too much longer. So let's get that done. I've got a multitude of garlic varieties this year, so
I've got my elephant garlic that I've saved. I've also got some other saved garlics that I've kept. I've also got some garlics that I've inherited off other plot holders, but my favourite one is going to be the Lautrec and cadours, and also the elephant garlic, so they're going to go in today. So all the garlic is now planted into this one bed. I have got another bed to do on another day, but mainly elephant garlic. And now I put this metal gridding across the top to stop the pests from getting in and digging it all up. So we'll see how it gets on in the next couple of weeks. So some people do buy shop bought garlic and plant it in, and they do get smaller bulbs. But I've always found that buying it from, you know, a reputable source, like a garden centre or some kind of autumn fair, that you tend to get bigger bulbs and bigger crops as well. So by paying that extra £1 or so, you do tend to get better crops later on. So these are saved bulbs, so if by next year they're not as good, then I will replenish the stock by new. But it's good to keep some back, plant it up, and with elephant garlic I've never had a problem doing that. So you can just keep saving the bigger bulb for next year and the year after and continue your stock. I'm so pleased that one job is done. Plenty more to do on the grapevine garden, and that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll be spending a lot more time down the grapevine garden, getting this back up to scratch. Let's head back up to the fig and olive plot. I'm really pleased now that that garlic is in, because it was starting to become a bit of a pain. I keep thinking I'm going to do that tomorrow, I'm going to do that tomorrow, and we've got some torrential rain for the next couple of days. I've also managed to salvage a pile of runner beans as well, so I'll store these again so we've got extra beans for next year. So I'm back at the fig and olive plot, and while I was down there weeding out the beds, I managed to get a lemon balm, which had absolutely, I don't know how it's got on the bed, but it's self-seeded and it's got a good root system. So I've got myself a little pot. I'm going to pop it in here now and then overwinter it in here. It can go outside, but I've got the room in the polytunnel anyway, so I may as well just leave it in here and hope for the best that this will overwinter, and next year when I do my herb garden I can plant it in there and it's another free plant. I'm Danny and this is the Grapevine Garden.